Alright, what's up guys, it's KOSDFF here, and today we're going to be traveling forward into the future yet again, but further this time, because most of the stories I've told you guys have been from my adolescence. This time I'm going to be telling you guys a story that takes place right when I finished college, like literally right as I finished college, and it's a story about how my college best friend came to sue me right as we were finishing school and I was about to go to law school. Yes, I actually have been sued, the only time I've ever been sued, and I was sued by like my best friend in small claims court. But before we get to that, I want to lay a little bit of backdrop to this story. So basically, I became really good friends with this guy named Chris, and it was at UNCC, University of North Carolina at Charlotte. He was one of the first people I met when I went to that school. And to give you guys kind of like a brief collegiate history of like why I was at UNC Charlotte, because I didn't originally attend that college straight out of high school. Originally, I attended a school called UNCG, which is the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, which was another, state school. It was a really good school. But the main reason I attended that school and not UNCC is I didn't originally get into UNCC. They required a bit higher of a GPA than I had, and I guess I just wasn't so attractive to them, like in the pool of high school students. But I did get into UNCG, but really only spent a year there, because the first year in college, your boy Kos didn't do much. Well, I mean, I did a lot, but I didn't do much schoolwork. I hardly went to class. I never did homework. Like, the transition from high school to college for me was really dramatic, and I just did not transition very well. I never did anything in high school. I never did any homework. I basically skated off my basic intelligence so that I could get by making like low B's without ever having to read or do anything. That's how easy high school is. If you're fucking up in that shit, man, come on. The littlest amount of effort and you'll do well. It's just really annoying because you've got to give that little amount of effort every single day, and it's really monotonous, but still. Anyways, I ended up not doing so well there, and I'll tell you the story of UNCG at a later time. But I eventually went home, so I moved back to Charlotte and attended a community college called Central Piedmont Community College with my good friend Johnny, and I'll tell you guys the stories about, attending there too, but I really buckled down there. That was very similar to high school, and I had a lot of my high school friends that were around. All the ones that didn't attend state schools attended this community college, so it was a really familiar setting, and I ended up really excelling there. After getting like straight A's for an entire year, 2 semesters, I finally got my college GPA up over 2.0, and then I could transfer to UNCC. But if you guys didn't know that, applying to a good school straight out of high school is actually really difficult. Getting into a college straight out of high school without stellar grades or a stellar SAT score or anything like that can be really hard. But if you go to a community college and do well there, transferring after you hit like their minimum GPA is actually extremely easy. You're a better bet for them. You've been a tested college student. They want college students that are going to do well at their school because that brings up their like college-wide GPA and makes them more marketable. In general, transfer students and returning students, I guess, do better grade point average-wise than first-year students, meaning freshmen. Which I don't know the statistic nowadays, but back when I attended, it was like, I don't know, 40% of freshmen always like never went through with it and ended up dropping out. But after all that, I finally got into UNCC, and this was my 3rd year of college now. So this is literally, I'm supposed to be going into my junior year, and really I'm just going into my sophomore year. So I'm a total year behind already, because I only had like 3 classes transferred from UNCG and maybe 6 classes transferred from CPCC. And I didn't know anyone at this school, because everyone else that, I had known that went to that school straight out of high school, I didn't really keep in touch with. It had been 2 years. So I decided to move into the dorm so I could make friends. And the first kid I met there was this little pudgy Italian kid who was kind of balding, but he was really nice and really cool, and his name was Chris. And he was really into video games. He was kind of like the gaming guy. He was the first person I've ever seen play Call of Duty. And although I never ended up playing with him, he tried to make me play it once. I think it was Modern Warfare. And I just really didn't take to it. I played it for like 10 minutes and couldn't understand and couldn't get a kill and just really didn't like it. That was the first time I'd ever actually seen that game. But I ended up hanging out with him a lot, and he kind of introduced me to his group of friends. So boom, went to the new school, made friends. Check. That's like the first thing you usually have to do in that kind of situation. That's really the hard part about school. You find your little social group, then it's just a balancing game between that and schoolwork. But I actually really excelled at college, as you guys probably know, because I continued on to law school. But I really enjoyed school once I realized I could do well at it, and studying and getting good grades and getting praise, and like everyone thinks you're doing a good job, and life is just really great when you're good at school. So that's actually something I really enjoyed. But we're not going to really talk about that today. So basically I started hanging out with Chris and this group of friends, and we all kind of became a clique. That was like my group in college, and it consisted of like 4 other dudes and like 3 other girls, and we all kind of did everything together. Everything from like weird holidays that only a couple of us celebrated to just anything that we did, we always did with that group. We all ended up moving in with each other. Now, I never ended up moving in with Chris because he had a brother that he ended up rooming with that was also at that school, and his parents, I guess, figured if they're going to be paying rent, they might as well just pay a whole apartment's rent and have both of them in one. I ended up moving in with my friend Dave and my friend Bud into this like house that everyone ended up hanging out at all the time because we had plenty of room. It was a big ass house. I think we ended up renting it for hella low. It was like $800 a month. That's the place I learned a lot of the skills that have come in handy here at this team house, actually, and how to like manage a bunch of people's shit and like, you know, make sure everyone gets along. Although we didn't really end up getting along that well at that house. Some of your best friends will make absolutely terrible roommates, trust me. I'm sure a lot of you guys are about to figure that out. But I still ended up hanging out with Chris a whole lot. He was just kind of like my study buddy because he also did accounting. If you guys didn't know, I majored in accounting in college. And after his like plans to do whatever major he didn't like, I eventually convinced him to do accounting. Like we were kind of like that close. He was my buddy. We did everything almost together, which is really sad, you know, considering everything that ended up happening. But all right, we're gonna skip all the way to like the end of college. So I spent 3 years at that school because I finished my degree there. I am just about to graduate, and I've just found out that I'm going to be going to law school in Oklahoma because they gave me a full scholarship, and you know, none of us really had money to pay for that stuff. So getting a scholarship at a school was really important, and that's the reason why I went to Oklahoma. It's the only reason. I didn't know anybody there at all. But it was a private law school, so it was kind of fancy, and they had what was considered around that area a really good law program, and I'm actually really confident in my legal education. I think they did an amazing job, even though I didn't end up working in like the legal field or whatever. So my plan was to leave to Oklahoma as soon as I graduated, to give myself the summer to like acclimate myself, to find an apartment I really like, to make friends, to get comfortable for law school. Because if you're entering law school, as I'm sure maybe a couple of you are that are listening to this, you know that everyone tells you your 1L year is absolute hell. And they're correct. Your first year of law school is one of the most daunting things you will ever go through. It is terrible. Everything they say about it is true. People have written books about how terrible your first year of law school is. I'm not actually kidding. I wish I could tell you I'm kidding, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. So that was my plan. All right, so really, I think it's either like a week before I graduated or a week after I graduated. Oh, another side note, I was the oldest in my group of friends. So when I was graduating, I was the only one graduating besides like 2 or 3 other people. The rest of them all remained in college and all had like either a semester or a year left. Both my roommates, our other friend Weston, and Chris all still had like more schooling to do after that. So they remained. They were all going to stay there, actually in the house that I was living in after I went to law school. But one fateful night, me and the rest of the guys decided to do kind of like a night run through the campus, because the campus had all these trails, they had all this property, and we used to run around that stuff at night because it was actually pretty fun, especially when you're with a group of friends and you're just running around being total jackasses around the campus. Total boredom, nothing to do. You know, this is college, so everyone's broke, so we found ways to entertain ourselves, and I guess this was it. But it had been raining the night before, so we all got pretty muddy. All our shoes were totally fucked up. And this is important because my friend Chris, the guy I'm telling you this story about, had just gotten a brand new car. It was like a Volvo station wagon or an Audi station wagon, I want to say. It was an older type car. I think it was like early 90s maybe. To be honest, I really don't know. It just looked old and it was a station wagon. But he was immensely proud of it. His whole family loved Audis and they just were all about that stuff, and everyone was really excited that he had a car. Him and his brother shared like a car that his family had kind of given them both. So he was getting his own car finally. And it was a big car so he could cart around everybody, and that was the reason why he was driving. But as we were returning to his car from this run, I'm sure he noticed everyone's shoes were really mad fucked up, and he didn't want them to mess up the inside of his brand new car. So he had all of us put all our shoes in the back hatch, and I was the last person to do so. I actually didn't have that muddy of shoes, so I kind of got into the front seat because I called shotgun and was making sure I was getting it. But he waited at the tail end of the car. We weren't going anywhere until I put my shoes in. So of course I reluctantly removed my shoes and went to go place them in the back of this car. But when I closed the back hatch, it slammed right down and broke his back windshield, all the pieces right then and there. The guy had this car for maybe a week. He was uber pissed and was totally convinced that I slammed the back hatch because I was angry that I had to put my shoes back there, which really wasn't the case. The shocks on that thing could just barely hold it up in the most upright position. But as soon as you brought it down just a little bit, it would just fall down and slam. I just didn't even touch it. I like barely tapped it on the top and just let the weight of the door close it, which was a bad idea because it like reverberated or vibrated that glass so much that it broke. Now, of course, I'm feeling guilty as shit. I'm saying I'll pay for it, don't worry. I've had plenty of experience with this, which I had because I've had my car broken into a couple times, so I've had to get windows replaced more than once. And if you have like comprehensive insurance, it's like almost free to get it replaced because most of the time the glass repair people will actually pay your deductible and you'll just get a free window and they'll bill your insurance. And if they don't do that, which is really odd, you only have to pay like at most $50. But since this was an Audi, I was guessing maybe 100, 150 tops, which back then was a lot of money because we was broke in the college days. But still, you know, I felt really guilty because it was me that broke his window. So we returned to our house. He actually had to park his car in our garage because it was about to rain again, and of course his back windshield was busted out. So his car was there a few days and he had called around some repair shops, and he came over one afternoon to inform me that I owed him $1,200 to fix his back window. Now, I was barely going to afford the 150, so there was just no way I was coming up with the 1200. So the first thing I did was call my parents and tell them the whole situation, and they said, hell no, we ain't paying for that. And at this point, we're in my room. I'm at my desk, like playing video games or something. And he starts pointing to like my monitor, my computer, saying, hey, you can sell that so you can give me money. And I'm just like, hold up, hell fucking no. You're not gonna come in here and start like eBaying my shit off to pay for your ridiculously expensive window. And I started talking to him about all this insurance stuff, and it came out later, I'm guessing basically, that he was taking money for his parents to buy this insurance, but of course went out and got the absolute cheapest form of insurance there was that didn't have comprehensive insurance. By the way, comprehensive insurance is like 15-20 bucks a month. It just basically covers things to the exterior of your car. It's really nothing. But he had been taking money from his parents to pay for this insurance, and I'm guessing either didn't get insurance that covered window breakage or just didn't have insurance at all when was pocketing the money. So this was a really desperate situation for him because he's got a car that he can't drive now because it's got no back window. So his solution was to sue me, and he sued me quick. It was like 2 days. This guy hit me like I owed him child support. And I felt bad because here was a friendship that it was really getting torn apart over $1,200. And it was because we are totally broke college kids living off like $300 or $400 a month that there was just no way that I could pay for that. And there's no way he could pay for that. And he didn't have insurance, so he was really stuck in a bind. And he also couldn't go to his parents because they thought he had the insurance the whole time. So he was really just stuck in a terrible situation. So not to kind of like downplay what's about to happen, but that was literally the reality he was looking at. Now, eventually, I got served with a subpoena to come to court. I was home visiting my parents one weekend because I went back there to basically get stuff ready because I was about to move to Oklahoma literally within a week. And a sheriff pulled up to my parents' house and served me with a subpoena. And that subpoena was for a court case that didn't happen to the very end of summer, meaning I could not leave North Carolina and go to Oklahoma to get ready for law school until we had this court case and had to stick around for the entire summer. Now, this was extremely awkward because I still lived at this house and Chris was still friends with everybody else. So he was always at the house like all the time, and we had just kind of, I guess, silently agreed to just let the courts figure it out. But it was just an extremely awkward situation because he was still friends with all those guys and I was leaving. But eventually I like moved out of there and moved back to my parents' house for like a week before I ended up leaving, just because I needed everything in boxes and my parents were going to drive me all the way to Oklahoma. And in that time I'd become really distant from like everybody in that group of friends just because I'd kind of had enough of it. I was really upset at the situation and just really how my college experience was ending up and was just ready to move on. I was going to go move to a new state, make new friends, go to a new school, start this whole other part of my life, this new adventure. And by the way, moving to a place where you don't know a soul and the nearest person to you is like 1,000 miles away is actually a really soul enriching experience. Really is a character building situation. But eventually the court case came around and I showed up, and of course Chris was there and he had two of my friends there as witnesses, or our friends there as witnesses. And of course they really didn't testify against me. They just kind of testified that I was the one that closed the hatch, that I might have seemed upset because I had to put my shoes back there or something like that. But me being a young lawyer and, you know, someone that was just about to go to law school, I actually did a fair amount of like research online into court cases in North Carolina because I knew it was state law that applied. And I eventually read up on a law that requires motorists to keep their vehicles in working condition, meaning you're responsible for the working condition of your car, and that if something fails and you wreck into someone, and it's something that the courts have traditionally deemed you responsible for keeping track of, things like tire pressure and oil, things like that, that it's your fault for the accident. So I argued that the car was so old and the shocks were so worn down that they actually couldn't bear the weight of the door, so that when I closed it, the added force of the weight of the door caused the window to break, and that actually I wasn't at fault. Now, the judge actually really agreed with this. She even had me stand up in court and asked me how much I weighed, and of course back then I was like 150 pounds, so she looked at me and then looked at Chris and was just like, okay, there's no way this could even break it if he tried. And most hatches on cars you can't actually slam because the harder you push on it, the more the shocks resist you. So she was totally convinced that it was an accident and I didn't do it of malice because I was angry that I had to take my shoes off, because there's just no way I could have broke it even if I was. Then we got to the $1,200 that he was asking the court for, and of course she just laid into him because she knows, just like every adult in the country, that getting her window replaced is almost free. If you have just the most basic insurance, that is not a problem. And of course he had all of his estimates there and all these things, but they were over the phone estimates. He didn't actually take the car in, or there was something, I actually don't really remember why they didn't really accept his estimates, that she wanted new ones with insurance, so she wanted all of his insurance information because he didn't originally bring that, again because I think he didn't even have it. The court case actually ended up getting continued and we actually had to come back, but they allowed my dad to come speak for me because I told them I was leaving to law school and stuff like that. But she did say right before she released us that there was just no way she was going to make me pay $1,200. If I remember correctly, the end result was I actually lost, but I never had to pay that $1,200. I had to pay like the $90 in court costs and what I had agreed to pay. Now, I had told her the whole story of how I had agreed to pay for it, and then I thought it'd be like $100, $150 at most, which she agreed, which even that would be a pretty big number to get a window replaced, so that's what she ended up making me pay. So overall, it was like $240, which was absolutely hilarious to me because I had offered to pay half of it, so $600 back when he originally approached me in my room, and he wasn't accepting a dime less, which is absolutely hilarious because he ended up getting half of what he could have got, and he had to go through the bother of suing his best friend, which by the way kind of makes you a scumbag. Real homies don't go to the law telling stories. So overall, it was like $240 ended up having to pay to this kid, and we never ever spoke again. And I never really spoke to anyone in that group of friends again either, besides one guy named Alex because he was really cool. Ever since then, I've totally lost touch with that entire group of friends. I haven't spoken to any of them. I never really held a huge grudge against Chris. Like, I never was totally pissed off at him. I understood the situation he was in, and moreover, his mom was sick. I think she either died right before that or right after that. So it's just one of those situations where I felt absolutely terrible, remained almost completely silent, and just kind of went along with it. And that's why I kind of just withdrew from the whole thing, because it was just one of those terrible situations that life puts you in sometimes. He actually ended up developing a drug problem, I think, with pills or something like that. Ended up going to rehab. I have not kept up with him at all. His Facebook page is completely dead. When I was thinking of doing this commentary, I actually went and looked him up just to kind of see how he's doing, because he actually was a really nice guy. This shitty situation kind of just happened to both of us, but yeah, I haven't really heard from him since. But it's okay, I made new friends. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll see you tomorrow.